Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 21st September 2023. My name is T.S.V. Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Hardan, 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 Haribol, TRSV, Nectar, NECTAR, Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been doing in my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to my video and vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous and future videos. So let us continue with the topic for discussion for today's video. Yesterday we began talking about a term called liberation. By now we all know that we are all initially individual, unevolved spirit souls who are entrapped into a cocoon of four layers of material body only because we as spirit souls tried to get in touch with the material world with the intention of lording over the material world. Only when we got in touch did we realize that this inferior energy of Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually huge in size and power, and that it does not appreciate having any contact with us spirit souls who are officially a part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's superior energy. The material world did not want to have any truck with us spirit souls, but we tried to doggedly move in and get in touch with it, and so to avoid that irritation caused by that unwelcome contact, this material world enveloped us with four layers of material body, namely the first layer of causal body of intelligence and logic, second layer of astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions, third layer of etheric body of senses, and the fourth layer of gross body made up of air, fire, water, and earth. When we talk about liberation, we realize that ultimately on our path towards spiritualism, the first stage is to realize that we are no more living entities which we thought we are when we were entrapped in those four layers of material body, and that actually originally we are only individual spirit souls. Once we realize this, the second step is to go on the path of liberation from this chain of repeated births and deaths in this material world, which happens the moment we get entrapped in those four layers of material body. Liberation is as slow and steady a process as the actual or initial entrapment of the spirit soul by the material world and its bodies. This material world entrapped the spirit soul slowly and steadily over the eons with those four layers, and there was a huge gap between each surrounding or enveloping of that layer. That is, a time was taken to envelop this material, this spiritual, with the causal body of intelligence. Then there was a wide gap, after which it was again entrapped in a layer of astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions. And then there was another very wide gap, after which it was enveloped with etheric body of senses, and then there was a huge gap between the etheric body of senses and the final cocoon of the gross body. So is the process of liberation. It takes some time for one spirit soul or one a living entity to tread on the spiritual path to get self realized. Once it gets self realized and understands its actual ego of being a spirit soul, then the next step is liberation from this repeated chain of births and deaths. The first to be shed in that process is the gross body and the etheric body of senses, because both are joined together and both are incomplete without each other. Yesterday we talked about how a living entity sheds his or her gross body and etheric body of senses together in such a way that in future he or she may not take birth into this material world in a gross body or in etheric body of senses. But that does not mean that all is one. No, this spirit soul still has the astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions, and the causal body of intelligence and logic. For the time being, we will not talk about the causal body of intelligence because shedding it will happen only after entering it, and entering it will happen only when this living entity has been satisfied with being in the astral body of mind, feelings, and emotions for quite some time, say 1000 years at the least. Swami Yukteswaragiri, Sri Yukteswaragiri, the spiritual master of Swami Yogananda Paramahansa, told Yoganand after his own demise in 1936. Sri Yukteswari had already passed on in 1936 when 6 months or so later he met Swami Yogananda Paramahansa suddenly in a hotel room in Mumbai where Swami Yogananda was staying and waiting for his own ship to arrive for him to set sail to America back. At that time, Sri Yukteswaragiri told Swami Yogananda Paramahansa that he had already escaped being born again in a gross body or in an etheric body of senses, and that now he is firmly placed on the astral level of mind, feelings, and emotions in, uh, in an astral body. It means that no more was a birth for Sri Yukteswaragiri in this terra firma anymore. He was already on the astral side of births and deaths as living entities. Here he said that he had been given an assignment to help all those who had been seniors to him in this astral world, had been qualified or selected to reach the causal world, and so were standing nervous poised to reach the causal world. Swami Sri Yukteswaragiri said that these very exalted living entities were feeling quite nervous because they had been in astral body for eons, decades, centuries, millenniums, and probably trillions. So they were used to having an astral body, and now they were being qualified or selected to don the causal body of intelligence and logic. Furthermore, there is a term called genius. This genius is a capacity or a position of any living entity in the astral world which tries to regulate all those living entities in this material world through their own powers so that these people can succeed more than necessary in their chosen fields in this terra firma. It means that genius is a power of every living entity in the astral world. Some of them decide to monitor some very selected individuals in the material world to succeed in their respective walks of life, whether it is in the Mooladhara Chakra, the Manipuraka Chakra, the Anahata Chakra, the or any other such chakra, because Jnana Yoga of Vishuddha and Dhyana Yoga of Agya belong to the causal intelligence. In the astral mind, body of mind, this person, which is a living entity in that planet and which is possessing those powers of genius, either comes and enters this another living entity which is born in a gross body for a particular period of time, or it remains in the astral world and regulates this living entity so that it can do its own assignment in this material world in a better way, because here the brains of that living entity who is from the astral world possess this ordinary living entity. There is a proverb in English: talent is what you possess, but genius is what possesses you. Today we will talk about some examples where we will know what this particular proverb means. One particular individual who is otherwise a commoner in this material world may have a particular destiny or karma which is stored in his or her own sanchit karma and which is waiting to be taken as a slice of prarabdha karma for any other lifetime. Like there is a storage of sanchit karma in the psyche and superconscious memory of every ordinary living entity. Every ordinary living entity takes a slice of this sanchit karma and calls it prarabdha karma, which becomes the foundation for that living entity for his or her next lifetime. In that process, what happens is that prarabdha karma or slice of sanchit karma may be very, very special, depending upon how exalted that slice of karma is and is of which quality. Genius may or may not select one particular individual to possess him or her for a limited period of time so that this person may do some extraordinary deeds which will make him or her an idol in the memory or in the worship of other ordinary individuals in the society. In other words, one person may be selected by genius and that person may be possessed by that genius for a limited period of time. During this time, this person will do some extraordinary deeds in his or her own chosen line of profession or state of life in this society. This will make this person an icon or an idol in the eyes of other mortals in the society. This genius will remain with this particular ordinary living entity so far as it wants or it is allowed by this particular living entity knowingly or unknowingly to stay with him or her. Kindly remember here that genius is just like electricity or money. It is a raw power and influence, and at the same time, it is a very jealous mistress. When a genius possesses some living entity, it wants absolute obedience towards it from that particular living entity. The moment it possesses him or her, it cannot allow that person to have his or her own personal choices, whims, fantasies, etc., because genius has selected this particular living entity to do extraordinary jobs in this society. Genius is actually a living entity from the astral world. When it possesses this ordinary mortal in this society, it comes as a right combination of the destiny, karma, intelligence, experience, maturity, timing, and other such factors which influence that particular mortal in the society. When it happens, luck for such a person scores for soars, sorry, the luck for that person soars for a particular period of time when this genius is happily ensconced into the psyche of that living entity. This has been happening time and again. To understand this better, let us talk about the first example. There is a particular island called Corsica, which was initially in the hands of a country called Italy. In the 18th century, this Corsica decided to merge with another country called France. When it so merged, just 6 months later, one boy was born in an otherwise unknown family in the capital of Ajaccio of that island in Corsica. This boy was born on 15th August 1769. His parents christened him as Napoleon. The title of that family was Bonaparte. So this boy became Napoleon Bonaparte in his official registry as an individual. This boy had a very normal childhood, but because his island had become part of France, so this boy managed to get a seat in the military school of Brienne in France. He studied to become a soldier in the army in that particular school. He was intelligent, hardworking, and otherwise normal till one day, thanks to his karma and destiny, genius decided to select this person to possess him. Overnight, this boy showed germs of an intelligence far above that of ordinary mortals. He succeeded very well in his military studies and he progressed in the ranks of the ladder of success in the military or army of France, so much so that initially joining as a petty corporal, he rose in rank and soon became a colonel, etc. Genius had already crept inside him. This fellow was now totally possessed. It was at that time that he coined the phrase ceaseless ambition, ceaseless industry, limitless ambition, ceaseless industry, and the determination to succeed are the keys for success in any chosen field. All those who knew him during his salad days wondered at the sudden transformation of this boy. Believe it or not, it was the French Revolution period, and this guy soon became first consul of France and the chief of his own French army, to which officially he should not have belonged because 6 months before he was born, his own island of Corsica belonged to Italy and not France. This was all destiny planned by the same genius in the astral world. It planned in such a way that this guy was born 6 months after Corsica was annexed to France. After remaining as a first consul in the French army and the government, this boy married one girl called Josephine, whose destiny or horoscope said that her husband will become an emperor in some country. Actually, this Josephine had already been married to some other guy called Beauharnais, and she had a son and a daughter from that first husband. But that guy got killed in some fight or battle in some country when he was in the same French army whose chief was Napoleon Bonaparte. When Josephine came to Napoleon Bonaparte to get her dead husband's sword as a mark of trophy for herself. Napoleon saw her, got besotted with her, and then married Josephine. This was all the doing of that astral world's genius. After some time, the same very ordinary Napoleon Bonaparte became Emperor of France. For the next 11 years, genius was with him, as a result of which this guy fought and won every battle in Europe where he was participating. Everyone thought that Napoleon Bonaparte was indispensable, but then Napoleon made a slip. Till now he was loyal to that genius, but suddenly he felt, knowingly or unknowingly, advertently or inadvertently, that he could live his own life and go according to his own ambitions. He married another girl from a royal family of Austria called the Habsburg. In that process, he divorced his first wife, Josephine. He was warned by several wise men not to do this because they could realize that Napoleon was succeeding thanks to the genius which was possessing him. But Napoleon's bad times had arrived. He could not listen to any sane advice. He divorced Josephine and married another girl called Mary Louise, who gave him one son, the first in the case of Napoleon. This boy was actually from his own genes. But the moment he divorced Josephine, genius decided to leave Napoleon. And the moment genius left Napoleon, all the veneer and polish that had till now made Napoleon glow in the eyes of the society vanished or dropped suddenly. Now he was devoid of all his charisma and luster, and he began losing battles. So much so that after his loss in the Battle of Waterloo, this guy, who seemed to be so indispensable, was imprisoned and tossed into an island called Saint Helena in between Europe and Africa. He lingered on as a prisoner in that particular island for 6 more years before dying at the age of 52, forlorn, distraught, exhausted, and frustrated. His first wife, Josephine, whose luck had made him the emperor, was already dead. Genius found it convenient to leave this man the moment Josephine left him. This is the story or the actual events that take place when genius possesses any particular individual in the society. We will talk about other such examples which will also give us an idea of what happens when genius possesses an individual. In my next video, we shall talk about other such examples to make us understand better how this astral living entity turned genius acts. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular subject. Please give me your own opinions, thoughts, ideas, and views so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.